Listen, they told me you needed help writing humorous picture books. They said your jokes are not landing, that you didn't know the technical pieces of writing humor, that you are funny in person but not funny on the page. Guess what? I can't let you go out like that. You're in the right place. We are going to learn the mechanics of writing humor, particularly in picture books, but these elements that you learn today are applicable across the board, all mediums. So whether you're writing in classrooms, if you're in the museum space, or if you're a film writer and you write scripts for children, these tools and tactics that you learn via this video are going to help you to punch up your humor. If this is your first time here, my name is K.E. Lewis. I am author of the Sid Fleischman award-winning book, Never Take Your Rhino on a Plane, and I will be sharing tactics of humor that I found very successful during my journey here in traditional publishing. In my 10 years of experience, I have written in classrooms, in museums, and in picture books. And the humor tips I share today have been a part of my process as I've been telling stories for the last 10 years. But before I get started, I want you to do yourself a favor and actually save this video because this is one of the videos that you go back to after draft number 3. Also, this is a two-part video because humor is such a big world that I can't condense it in one video. So the first video, we are going to talk about the fundamentals of humor, how to actually start your humor toolbox. And then the second video, we're going to focus on making humor stick. How do you create those stories that kids and adult readers want to return back to again and again and again? Because in all actuality, kids don't buy books. It's the parents, teachers, and librarians who do. So how do you form a book that is humorous to both audiences? This episode is funded in part by the South Carolina Arts Commission, which receives support from the National Endowment for the Arts. This episode is also funded in part by a generous award from the John and Susan Bennett Memorial Arts Fund of the Coastal Community Foundation of South Carolina. All right, let's get to work. So for the purposes of this video, what I want you to do is I want you to think about humor as a pyramid. Humor has 4 layers. You have the bottom layer, which is story and narrative. The layer above that are your level 1 humor tactics. Those are the tactics that you are going to use to build your toolbox. Level 2, the techniques that make humor stick. And the very top level is what makes you humor supreme. How can you tell a story in a way that it suspends somebody's disbelief, it defies logic, and you're able to take them along the journey with you? I like to tell folks that humor is part head and part heart, with the 2 foundational levels being the heart. It's the care, the time, the attention that you take in learning how to tell stories, also developing the fundamental tactics of humor. So that appeals to the actual heart. Also, those tactics in level 1 appeals to the very visceral body responses. It surprises you. It makes you gasp. It makes you go, hmm. And then those in level 2, when you go up to the top tier or the upper echelons of humor, those are the ones that appear to the intellect, the brain. So you have your wordplay, your true to life moments, your irony, your juxtaposition, your suspending disbelief, all of those things. So this first video, we'll focus on level 1, creating from the heart. And then level 2, creating stories that stick. All right, so humor and storytelling. No matter what type of writer you are or what type of writer you aspire to be, the golden rule to becoming a better writer is to read deeply in your genre. So, for those of you who are watching this and you want to write better picture books, funnier picture books, you need to read a lot of funny picture books. For those of you who are wanting to write scripts, you read a lot of scripts. Humor is something that you need to constantly consume. You want to pay attention to the comedian because the comedian teaches you, 1, how to land your joke, 2, comedic timing and pacing, 3, how to keep things true to life. The same thing applies with picture books. You want to see how humor translates on the page. How do page turns affect how I tell this story? Where do I put the beats? How do I situate humor so that it could come at the perfect time? How do I use the elements of suspense, surprise, exaggeration? How have authors in the past used these elements to create successful humorous stories? So if you're not reading a bunch of humorous stories, you need to read. I'm going to give you an inside secret. Editors, agents, and other writers can tell when you're not reading. A lot of people who get into the kid lit industry, They come into the killers industry very anxious, right? And they want to publish yesterday. So if you don't want anybody to sniff you out and know that you're actually rushing through a manuscript, read deeply in your genre. It's like osmosis. You begin to pick up little tidbits here and there, and you learn without even trying. And speaking of narrative and storytelling, the great thing about this video is that we will reference real examples in literature as I go through each of the techniques. We have 7 tools to get through. I'm going to try to get through them as fast as I can so that you can get back to your manuscript. We're going to go through each one of them. I'll explain what they are, show you a textual example so that you can see how it exists in actual literature. And then we're going to do a quick review where I show you where these things exist in the first 3 spreads of my book, Never Take Your Rhino on a Plane. Got it? Let's go. Number 1, before we go and start talking about all the frills and the glitter that we put on these jokes, we need to first establish how we set up a joke, right? And instead of me trying to come up with a joke on the spot to try to make you laugh, I'm actually going to give you 2 examples that already exist so that you can see how to set up a joke. There are 3 rules to setting up a joke. 1, you need to set the expectation. 2, confirm the expectation. And 3, break the expectation. Let me give you an example. Look at these 2. And we know that both of them are up to shenanigans, and in every episode of Looney Tunes, there is an actual joke. There are many jokes because Wile E. Coyote is up to his shenanigans. The Roadrunner is defying those shenanigans. And in the end, it is Wile E. Coyote who gets the butt of the joke. Take a look. All right, so setting up a joke. Again, we have to set the expectation, confirm the expectation, break the expectation. In this example, we are setting the expectation when Wile E. Coyote actually paints this imaginary road. The Roadrunner actually runs through this painting because it becomes an actual road. That sets the expectation. Where this painting, we can run through it and it becomes a part of the actual scene. That expectation is confirmed when that truck comes and runs over Wile E. Coyote. But then when Wile E. Coyote tries to go around the bend, just like the Roadrunner and the truck, he does not round the bend. He goes through the painting and he falls off the cliff. We are setting the expectation, confirming the expectation, breaking the expectation. Let me give you another example. So one thing you need to know about me is that I actually study commercials, particularly Geico commercials, because I think they are incredibly smart and clever, and they do a great job at pushing humor. Remember the commercial of the little pig that cried, "wee, all the way home"? Take a look.
Could switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Did the little piggy cry wee, all the way home?
I really, really love this commercial because I think it's really genius. Let's go back to our rules of setting up a joke. Remember, setting up a joke, you are to do what first? You set the expectation, you confirm the expectation, you break the expectation. Now, in this particular commercial, where was the expectation set? It was set in your childhood. Everybody grew up. This little piggy went to the market. This little piggy stayed home. It was set up in your childhood. It was confirmed because you were asked a question from this video.
Did the little piggy cry wee, all the way home?
And then we broke expectations because whenever we think or hear that nursery rhyme, we always imagine the pig crying. But here, the joke actually flips what we know of this joke on his head. And we don't have a pig crying, but a pig actually enjoying himself in the backseat of a car, annoying our driver. All right, now that you've learned to set up a joke, let's move to the element of surprise. The element of surprise is not exclusive to picture books. The element of surprise is actually one of the best tools an author can have in their toolbox. It was actually Robert Frost who said, "No surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader." Meaning that if something that you are writing does not surprise you, guess what? It's not going to surprise your reader either. So lean into your instincts, even when you think something is too ridiculous. because it came to you for a reason. Now, take surprise in picture books. Surprise is self-explanatory. It's this thing that comes out of nowhere and you're like, what? What just happened here? Or it makes you scrunch up your face and you be like, mm. But the difference between the regular element of surprise and the surprise that comes in humorous picture books or text is that the surprise is escalating, meaning it gets larger and larger and larger every turn. Remember this title, The Little Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly? She swallowed a fly, then she swallowed a spider. And then everything gets bigger progressively. But here's the trick. The element of surprise does not work by itself, which reminds me of a title I have in my book bag. 1 second, let me get it. Everything's Wrong by Joy John and Aaron Cran. Now, in this particular book, I'm just going to read the beginning of the book to you, and you're going to see the surprises that are evident in this book. Here we go. Everything's wrong. Looks like another perfect morning. I can only assume that it'll be a no hassle, stress free, easy peasy kind of day. I can't see. Whoops. Gosh. No. Goodness. Womp. Wait a minute. Did the power just go out? I think it did. The power just went out. Oh, no. Also, where's my breakfast? Element of surprise, where things are happening here that are very random and sporadic. A bear who is clearly enjoying his morning routine. The lights go out. Once the lights go out, we have him spilling his breakfast here, stubbing his toe here on the chair. We even have him falling because he's now under his breakfast. And then of course, you go here and breakfast is on top of him. The thing about using surprise in picture books, again, it needs to escalate. Things need to happen and they need to be worse each time. You think about escalation in stages. If it's very small on the first page, by the time we get to pages 3 and 4, that problem needs to have grown and there needs to be a bunch of surprises in the way. I'll give an honorary shout out to Stuck. Stuck is also a book that does escalation really, really well. It's right here on the screen if you want to check it out. If you're looking for a book that braids both surprise and escalation together, Stuck is your one. I think it reminds me of the modern version of The Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. All right, we've learned to set up a joke. We've touched the element of surprise, the element of escalation, and now we're headed into our third one, or fourth one. Surprise, the fourth. Listen, I got 2 degrees in English. I don't have a degree in math. On to our fourth element here is the element of exaggeration. When things are blown way out of proportion and they grow and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And exaggeration, escalation, they might seem like sister twins, but exaggeration is when a personality, a trait, or a situation grows way out of proportion, whereas surprise and escalation, they're more random, but exaggeration relates to the whole story. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. One title, and this is an older title, but Sweet Tooth by Margie Palatini and Jack E. Davis. In this particular story, there is a little boy who has a sweet tooth, and his sweet tooth controls his life. We actually start this book off with our little friend here, Stuart. But Stuart's sweet tooth is not quiet. Stuart's sweet tooth actually talks. See him here? And he is demanding a lot from Stuart. In fact, if you go through the book, you're going to see places where he had poor little Stuart just stomach upset and regretting his choices. Stuart actually has to step up and defeat his sweet tooth and get rid of it once and for all. Exaggeration. It's a great read, by the way. If you hadn't checked it out, I suggest you check it out. It's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite books to come back to and so whenever I'm in a humor jam. So as you consider exaggeration, remember that exaggeration applies to the treatment of the entire story, not just one event, not just these random occurrences that happen throughout the book, but it's the entire story. Another great title that exhibits exaggeration is A Bad Case of Stripes, about a girl who wants approval, does not get it, and she turns into whatever people say. And people's thoughts and feelings are projected on her, and she becomes those things, which is also exaggeration, is pushing that concept way past the limit. but it becomes a funny text in that way. So that's the element of exaggeration. But just like the element of surprise that works well when it's paired with something, the element of exaggeration is best paired with suspense. So let me go into my bag and grab an example so that you can see where suspense and exaggeration work really well together. 1 second.
Hey, if you made it this far, that means you're serious about your craft and you're trying to understand the world of children's literature and how to break into kid lit. So you really should check out my resources at kelewis.world. Those resources will help you understand the industry, deepen your craft, and give you tools and tricks you'll find useful on your journey. For our teacher looking at this video, there are additional resources for you. See how I transform my books into engaging curriculum where you unpack the book and you get to explore literacy, math, science, and the arts. It's the perfect lesson plan for the day that you don't really feel like teaching, but also the ideal prep when preparing for a school visit. So run over to my site at kelewis.world and check out those resources. Now back to the conversation.
Creepy Carrots. Are we familiar with this one? So in Creepy Carrots, of course, Aaron Reynolds and Peter Brown. It's about a bunny, very much like our sweet tooth. He's obsessed with carrots, but the carrots strike back. Let's read the first couple pages so we can see where suspense and exaggeration work really well together. Creepy Carrots. Words by Aaron Reynolds. Pictures by Peter Brown. Jasper Rabbit had a passion for carrots, and the carrots that grew in Krakenhopper Field were the best, fat, crisp, and free for the taking. He pulled some for a morning snack on the way to school. He yanked out a few on his way to Little League practice. He ripped them from the ground on his way home at night. Jasper couldn't get enough carrots until they started following him. So, of course, you see the carrots are striking back. We actually get the exaggeration here as you go throughout this book. We often hear the words "you are what you eat," but the food never really attacks us. And so here, the food actually attacks our protagonist. And he has to get rid of these creepy carrots that keeps following him. The thing about this book, too, is that Peter Brown actually braids suspense and exaggeration together in a way that is very clever, and you might miss it. So if you know Alfred Hitchcock, famous filmmaker, suspense, horror, that genre, look at the visual style here. We are not just experiencing a picture book. We are paying homage to a filmmaker, and we are seeing stills of this movie play out in front of us. I think it's really neat. It's really cool for this particular book to pay homage in that way. But we get to see in here how suspense and how exaggeration are braided together. All right, so we're down to the last two techniques we'll use in level 1 of creating humor. The next one, potty humor. Now you think farts, boogers, smells, poop, that's potty humor. That's where all those things live. And kids get a kick out of potty humor. The only thing I would caution you, though, is that potty humor is actually easy to overuse. I have this rule. It might just be a KE rule, but I think potty humor it's one of those things you use sparingly. And two, I think it's just like that 3-letter word that we don't mention in Kid Lit over here because that's adult stuff. When I read romance, I actually feel better when that 3-letter word is not explained or not explicit. The same thing with potty humor. I think the more that we don't call attention to it or don't say it explicitly, the more it keeps its power. And that could be a KE thing. Again, I'm just giving advice based on what I feel deep in my heart now. I think that it's one of those things where it keeps the power when you don't say exactly what it is. Because it's so easily overused, and just like any other tactic, it's best when you pair potty humor with something else. I have a book in my bag that does a couple things that I really like, and I'm going to get it for you so we can talk about it. Cute Tooth by Brianna McDaniel and Olivia DeCastro. Of course, this book, two sisters play at a hide and seek game, and what happens while they're in the closet? Let's find out through the first 3 pages of this book. Cute toot. Attics are the best places for hide and seek. They've usually got big, odd-shaped objects to hide behind, and lots of little nooks and crannies too. The only thing is, how do I say this? Hide and seek gets a little harder when you have to, I mean, there's no way to be really delicate about it, so I'll just say it. Hide and seek gets harder when you've got gas. Great job in doing potty humor because, as you could tell through the first couple chapters, where our protagonist was kind of stringing us along, Brianna was using the tactic of suspense. She also uses toot and gas and fart. She uses synonyms for those words, so it feels like it comes back fresh every time. Tip to remember. But yes, and not to say that potty humor is off limits, because Brianna did a great job. It's just like any other thing. You just have to handle it with care. And something else that you need to handle with more care than potty humor is the last in this level, the one that you should use even more sparingly than potty humor, is slapstick. Slapstick is really gimmicky. It's whenever you use the object as a gag and you kind of depend more on the actual action than you do the language. So think about your whoopee cushions, thinking about clown imagery, slipping on banana peels, running into walls, even with the Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner example. That is slapstick. And we don't see it as much now as we did, years ago, because we have evolved as human beings and we find different things funny. But there are ways that you can slide slapstick humor into text. KE, where can I find slapstick humor in a text? I don't see it. Well, how about a review of everything? I think that's the best place to put this. All right. So we talked about narrative and storytelling and gone through all 7 tactics of your foundational toolbox for building humor. Let's actually review them by use of the first 3 spreads of Never Take Your Rhino on a Plane, where I point these out within the first few pages, and you actually see how stacking your tools and techniques makes for a better read aloud. Here we go. Never Take Your Rhino on a Plane. Words by yours truly, art by Isabel Rojas. You can take him on a ship, hail a taxi for the trip, waltz him gladly to the car or to the train, but absolutely never believe it's safe or clever to take your pet rhinoceros on a plane. Let's start there. Do we notice anything? Let's start with the 3-way setup first. You could take him on a ship, hail a taxi for the trip, waltz him gladly to the car or to the train. All of those modes of transportation, they're on the ground. But absolutely never believe it's safe or clever to take your pet rhinoceros on a plane. Set you up for all those ground expectations, and then we break it with the flight. But also, there is a surprise on the page, as it is in the title, because we have an actual rhino here. He is definitely a surprise guest. We don't expect him to come, and we'll talk about juxtaposition in the next video. But he's juxtaposed against the actual background, the landscape. He's a large animal in a small space. So we have the surprise, we have the 3-way setup in the first spread. Here we go. He will pack just what he please. Anthills, horn grease, a trapeze. All right. The thing about this particular spread is that Rhino is packing 3 things. Anthills, which should probably be natural in his environment, whether that be anthills, mite hills, trees, anything that make you feel at home. Or for this case, that would make a rhinoceros feel at home. And then horn grease. Horn grease, of course, it's my blackness. Love me some lotion. So I'm thinking about a rhino. If the rhino would actually need lotion, that's what it would be called, horn grease. I can imagine that there's some maintenance that has to do with his horn, because I'm one of those people that loves to do self-care. My rhino does self-care. And then we get a trapeze. Katie, where did that come from? If you see throughout the entire book, going back to the 3-way setup, for every 2 beats, there is this ridiculous thing that does not belong. If you go back and read Rhino. And it's also a surprise. And every time, it gets bigger and bigger. Escalation. Because we went from an airplane to trapeze, and guess where we going next? Let's look at the page. Drags his duffel as you shuffle through the gate. We're used to seeing duffel bags for travel, and you feel like you'll explode as the bus speeds down the road. We catch the bus to the airport because the only option left is roller skates. Roller skates? Where do roller skates come from, KE? Again, element of surprise gets more ridiculous as you continue to turn the page. Then I'm going to end it here. He'll see stanchions and think maze. Then consider all the ways he can rid you to of people in your path. Remember that slapstick where we depend on the actual movement and not the language really for this piece? Slapstick here. Slapstick here. Once his hooves go by his ears, you will hope to disappear, catch a whiff, and know he hasn't had a bath. Potty humor. We got smell. So we see all our foundation in here. You say, KE, you skipped over exaggeration. I didn't. This entire book is an exaggerated experience. Never Take Your Rhino on a Plane was inspired by an actual plane ride that I had in 2017. I sat beside a terrible passenger who inspired Rhino. This person was doing everything you could think of, smacking, singing, bouncing on the plane, just doing everything they could. And I don't know whether it was angst or what, but it inspired me to write what not to do when you're traveling on a plane by way of this kid and his pet rhinoceros. Hey, if you found value in this video, you would really like creating humor that sticks. Click on this next video so that you could learn how to create books that make children laugh again and again and again. And if you're struggling to stack up the jokes and beef up the humor in your manuscript, go to my website at kelewis.world under free resources, and you'll find a humor scorecard, which allows you to sit down with your manuscript, see how you are using humor, see how you're not using humor, and it gives you a score and practical steps you should take in order to enhance the humor in your manuscript. See you next video.